Hey, how are we all doing? So this one is about centre of gravity. So the A2 CofC centre of gravity. Now, a good RAE will be talking about two aircraft types. One is fixed wing, and we'll do fixed wing first because fixed wing is a little bit easier. Now, the first thing to note about centre of gravity is in all manuals, don't care if it's multi-rotor, fixed wing, whatever, they will tell you the maximum takeoff mass and also where you should be adding payloads, if any. But we will look at the plane first. So here's a plane. Now with fixed wings, very important. If you have a rearward centre of gravity, you'll only fly the once. Very hard to fly again if the aircraft is doing this all the flight and then falls out the sky. Doesn't do them any good, to be honest. So, rearward centre of gravity on a fixed wing is a nightmare. Typically, on a fixed wing, it's a third back from along the main spar, which will be here somewhere, but if I put my fingers under it to find it, yeah, it's there. It's actually there-ish. I haven't got the battery in, but I bet it's somewhere just there. Is where it would actually be. So it's normally the main chord. So with a fixed wing, your centre of gravity is normally the main chord. Now, if you've ever been on holiday and there's not been many people on a plane and you've all sat towards the back, sometimes what they'll do is they'll look at it and they'll go, right, can everyone move forward please to the front area or over the wings, because they want to move all the weight. So all as fat tubbies like me, they want to move us all to where the centre of gravity dash under the main wing is, or over the main wing, because that's better for the aircraft to fly. When they ask you to move forwards. There's a reason why. It's because they don't want to fly the once. They'd like the aircraft to make it to its next destination and not have any problems. Now, when it comes to adding payloads or anything to a fixed wing, follow the manual's instructions. This is the right answer, no matter what anyone says. If someone says, oh, you've got to add a light to the aircraft, that's fine. Is it within maximum takeoff mass as per the operations manual? And is it said where to put it? So on a light on an aircraft, you couldn't put one at the back without adjusting for the centre, for that difference at the front. So you're going to have to put the light, ideally you'll put a beacon light on the centre top chord for a model plane. For example, you put it here. You won't put it back there because all of a sudden you upset the centre of gravity, problem. Centre of gravity on a fixed wing at the front on nose heavy isn't too much of a problem. They can generally fly all right. However, if you want it to fly badly, you put it at the back. So, recap. Centre of gravity, you only add extra things to where the manual says. And you have to be within the maximum takeoff mass. And that is the maximum takeoff mass the manufacturer has said the aircraft can fly at. Not what someone's made up on YouTube or anything else. It's actually what the manufacturer says. So if they say, right, it can weigh 3 kilos or maximum takeoff mass, and you've got 2.5, you've got 500 grams to play with, and they should tell you where to put it on the aircraft roughly. So take an M210, it can take 2 camera payloads, the flight computer can work all that out, the aircraft is rated to do that. You wouldn't go around putting a second camera on a Mavic 2 Pro because one, it's already got a camera, 2, you're probably going to take it over its maximum takeoff mass, and that would be a mistake. So he says reaching for said Mavic 2 Pro. So here we have a Mavic 2 Pro. Centre of gravity point will be in the middle. So multi-rotors, the centre of gravity tends to be here, right in the middle. Doesn't matter if it's a hex, an octo or whatever. If you see a GM, the weight will be in the middle. That'll be its hovering, that'll be its centre point, just here. Got to be careful. Multi-rotors are a lot more forgiving than the fixed wings. You can add weight at the back and you can add weight at the front. The flight controller tends to adapt for it. Now with the C ratings you have to be really careful because they will say, oh, this aircraft can fly at say 1.5 kilos. And if we pretend this weighs 1.5 kilos, could you add this light to it? And with its mount, it only weighs 30 grams, but technically you're going to breach the manual. So this is something to watch out for because technically you're adding weight to something that while yes, it can appear to handle it correctly, the manufacturer has said, well, actually, the takeoff weight is 1.4 kilos. Therefore, that's it. However, let's say they said 1.4 kilos, but it actually weighs 1,300 grams, so we've got 100 grams to play with. Can you put this light on it? Yes, you can. However, you would look to put it in line with any manufacturer instructions, and if there are none, you would want to put it as best you can as close to the centre point. It has to be secure. It can't just come off. If it just unclips and falls away, that's no good. That's not safe. In the olden days, they used to say secondary fixings for cameras and gimbals because a lot of self-builds. They still bang on about it. You'll never be able to put a secondary fixing for this camera because if you did, it would just bugger it up. It won't work right. So that's a lot of oldie stuff that's dragged on and dragged on. And why it's dragged into this new generation, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, the C ratings means you're not going to build your own. The cameras are going to be secure. Just check it before flight, pre-flight, so you just make sure that it is, yeah, that's fine, I'm happy with that, and then you can fly. But secondary fixings, you can't do them. It's a legacy thing that's kept over for some reason. I don't know why. Pointless in the C rating stuff. Bit of a rant in there somewhere. So you might get the question about secondary fixing. If it's possible, you might do it, but if it's not, you won't, and you won't worry about it if you can't, because that's the way that works. But yeah, any object you add to the centre point. If it's a bigger aircraft and you've got space at the front or the back, if you do add it, does the aircraft fly all right where you've put it? Do a quick little flight test before you do any commercial flights with it of any kind. Take it somewhere out the way, quick hop and check and hovers. If you've added something like a speaker system to the top of it, like this, like the Mavic 2 Enterprise does, you may put the speaker on top. Will that affect the way it flies? Just fly it, get used to it before you go out and use it commercially. So you just got to think about how adding something to your aircraft could affect the centre of gravity and or the way it flies. And anything you do add has to be added in line with the manufacturer's recommendations. Okay? Now, two things to note. Flying weight is what your aircraft flies at. So I've got battery in it, fully charged. I've got my aircraft, got my electrons in my battery. This is its flying weight. Okay. Its maximum takeoff mass is different because that's what the manufacturer says it could actually fly at. So this could weigh 1,200 grams, 1.2 kilos. But the manufacturer might say, well, actually, it can actually fly at 1.4, so it can fly at 1,400 grams, just under 1.5 kilos. Then you go, okay, so I've got 200 grams I can play with. That's fine, but again, always add centre point. Don't add at the back, don't add at the front. Try to keep it always within the centre point. And also bear in mind, you don't block any of your sensors that you might be using, including the underside one. Funny story. So I did some work for a client with an M210. Now, it didn't happen to me. I want to stress this. It didn't happen to me, but a couple of their other pilots had this problem where they added an extra payload. They blocked the sensor that detects the ground. They didn't turn it off. So when the M210 took off, it didn't stop taking off. It just kept climbing, because if you block the sensor, it thinks it's still near the ground because it's a vision sensor and everything. So they had put a payload directly here, and if you don't turn off the sensor in the app, guess what? It does one thing. It just climbs vertically, and it doesn't stop. Well, it does when it runs out of battery, and it comes back down. So when adding things to your aircraft, things to watch out for: don't block sensors. You add them in line with what the manufacturer says, and that's it. Remember, C-rated aircraft means they've been given a special rating now because they're really airworthy, and it makes them ultra special. Oh shit. So yeah, just remember, always add things in line with manufacturer's recommendations. Right, that's it on your centre of gravity and maximum takeoff mass and flying weight for your A2 CFC. Take care.